At the will reading, my parents said, "Everything goes to your sister, obviously." Then the lawyer smiled at me. Lauren Mitchell was 32 and was used to being the forgotten daughter. While her sister Blair was praised for every minor achievement, Lauren had learned to expect silence, or worse, comparison. Still, when their parents passed, she showed up to the will reading out of duty, not expectation. That's when Blair leaned in with a rehearsed smirk and whispered, "Everything goes to me, obviously. It's what they always wanted." Their godfather's lawyer cleared his throat, opened the final envelope, and smiled directly at Lauren, because some inheritances aren't about money, they're about truth. And sometimes the one they ignored is the one they quietly trusted most. Subscribe to the channel to follow Lauren's journey. What her parents tried to bury, the lawyer brought to light, and the story is just beginning. At the will reading, my parents said, "Everything goes to your sister, obviously." Then the lawyer smiled at me. Chapter 1: The Forgotten Daughter. The Seattle rain pelted against the windows of Harrington and Associates, a rhythmic soundtrack to the end of an era. Lauren Mitchell smoothed down her simple black dress, a stark contrast to her sister Blair's designer ensemble. At 32, Lauren had long accepted her position in the family hierarchy, the reliable but unremarkable daughter, forever eclipsed by her sister's dazzling presence. The conference room was all polished mahogany and old money, much like her parents' life had been. Family photos lined the credenza behind Mr. Harrington's desk. Lauren noticed she appeared in precisely 3 of the 12 frames. Some things never changed, even in memoriam. "Miss Mitchell." Mr. Harrington nodded at Blair first, then, almost as an afterthought, "and Miss Mitchell." Blair tossed her perfectly highlighted hair over one shoulder. At 35, she had mastered the art of looking simultaneously grieved and glamorous. "Thank you for arranging this so quickly, Richard. I have a flight to Aspen tomorrow evening." Lauren bit her tongue. Their parents weren't even buried yet, and Blair was planning her escape to the slopes. Of course," Mr. Harrington murmured, shuffling papers importantly. "I understand this is a difficult time for both of you." The weight of their parents' absence felt oddly uneven on Lauren's shoulders. Eleanor and William Mitchell had been pillars of Seattle society, generous with their charity donations, stingy with their emotional availability. Their sudden deaths in a private plane crash had been shocking, but Lauren's grief was complicated, tangled with decades of unmet expectations and unspoken words. "Before we begin," Mr. Harrington continued, "there's someone else joining us. Your godfather specified." The door opened, and a younger man entered. He couldn't have been much older than Lauren, with kind eyes behind tortoiseshell glasses and a leather messenger bag that seemed too casual for the somber setting.
"Apologies for my tardiness," he said, extending his hand. "Michael Lawson. I'll be handling the specifics of your godfather Edmund's additions to the will." Blair's perfectly plucked eyebrows shot up. "Eddie? What does he have to do with any of this?" Lauren remained silent, remembering her godfather fondly. Uncle Eddie, as they'd called him, had been her father's college roommate and lifelong friend. Unlike her parents, he had always remembered Lauren's birthdays, sent thoughtful Christmas gifts, and once, memorably, attended her college graduation when her parents had been unavoidably detained at a charity gala. Mr. Harrington cleared his throat. "As I was saying, Edmund Blake made certain provisions that intersect with your parents' will. Mr. Lawson represents his estate." Blair let out an exaggerated sigh. "Can we just get to the point? The house in Bellevue, the apartment in Manhattan, the investment portfolio." Lauren watched her sister tick off their parents' assets like items on a shopping list. She herself had come expecting nothing. She had built her modest life as a children's book illustrator without family assistance, her small studio apartment in Capitol Hill filled with artwork rather than heirlooms.
Mr. Harrington adjusted his glasses. Right then, to the matter at hand. He opened a thick folder, the official seal of the state of Washington embossed on its cover. The last will and testament of Eleanor and William Mitchell. As he began reading through the standard legal jargon, Blair leaned close to Lauren, her expensive perfume invading her space. With a practiced smirk that didn't reach her eyes, she whispered, "Everything goes to me, obviously. It's what they always wanted." Lauren met her sister's gaze without flinching. 20 years ago, those words would have cut deep. Now they merely confirmed what she had always known. Mr. Harrington droned on about assets and distributions. The lake house to Blair, the Manhattan apartment to Blair, the majority shareholding in Mitchell Enterprises to Blair. Lauren stared out at the rain, wondering why she had even come. Perhaps some childish part of her had hoped for, not inheritance exactly, but acknowledgement, some sign that she had mattered to them. "And now," Mr. Harrington said, looking uncomfortable for the first time, "we come to an unusual addition." He glanced at Michael Lawson. "Perhaps you should explain this part." The younger lawyer nodded and pulled out a sealed envelope. "Edmund Blake made an amendment to his own will the day after your parents finalized theirs, with their full knowledge and consent." Blair rolled her eyes. "What does that have to do with anything?" Michael Lawson opened the envelope with careful fingers. "Upon the passing of William and Eleanor Mitchell and the execution of their will, Edmund Blake directs that this final envelope be opened and its contents revealed only at this moment." Lauren felt something shift in the atmosphere of the room. Mr. Harrington was suddenly very interested in his pen. Michael Lawson looked directly at her, not at Blair, and smiled. "Miss Lauren Mitchell," he said, his voice clear in the hushed room. "Your godfather wanted you to have this." He slid a smaller envelope across the table. Lauren took it with trembling fingers. Inside was a key and a handwritten note in Uncle Eddie's familiar scrawl. "My dearest Lauren, some trusts can never be broken. The truth awaits at the lookout. You'll know what to do. With love and faith, Eddie." Blair leaned over, trying to read the note. "What is this? What does it mean?" But Lauren knew exactly what it meant. The lookout was Uncle Eddie's cabin on Whidbey Island, where she had spent summers as a teenager when her parents were traveling and Blair was at prestigious camps. It had been her sanctuary, the one place she had felt truly seen. Michael Lawson was still watching her, his smile gentle. "There's more, Miss Mitchell. Much more." For the first time since entering the room, Lauren felt a spark of something unfamiliar. Hope. If this story has captured your interest and you're eager to discover what awaits Lauren at the lookout, don't forget to subscribe to our channel right now. Hit that notification bell to be alerted when Chapter 2 drops. Trust me, you won't want to miss the revelations that are coming. The journey of the forgotten daughter is just beginning, and the truths buried by the Mitchell family are about to change everything. Chapter 2. Buried Truths. The key felt heavy in Lauren's palm as she navigated the winding roads of Whidbey Island the following morning. Her modest Honda looked out of place among the luxury vacation homes that dotted the coastline. But as she turned onto the familiar gravel path leading to the lookout, a sense of coming home washed over her. Uncle Eddie's cabin wasn't grand by Mitchell standards, a cedar A-frame perched on a cliff overlooking the Puget Sound. But to Lauren, it had always been magical. This was where she had learned to paint, where Uncle Eddie had first praised her remarkable eye for detail and given her a real set of watercolors on her 13th birthday. She parked beside the weathered deck and sat for a moment, memories flooding back. The last time she'd been here was 6 years ago, before Uncle Eddie's health began to decline, before he moved to Arizona for the dry air that might ease his emphysema.
The cabin looked exactly the same, untouched by time or trend, a testament to Eddie's belief that some things shouldn't change. Lauren took a deep breath and approached the door, key in hand. Inside, the familiar scent of cedar and old books welcomed her. Dust motes danced in the sunlight streaming through the windows. The main room was as she remembered: stone fireplace, overstuffed chairs, bookshelves lining every wall. Uncle Eddie's collection of first editions and rare art books had been her first introduction to the world she would eventually make her own.
On the old oak desk by the window lay a thick manila envelope with her name written on it. Lauren's heart pounded as she opened it. Inside were documents, dozens of them, financial statements, letters, photographs, and a sealed envelope marked "Read this first" in Uncle Eddie's handwriting. Lauren sat in the worn leather chair and broke the seal. "My dearest Lauren, if you're reading this, then both your parents and I have left this world, and certain truths can finally come to light. What I'm about to tell you may be difficult to process, but I've watched you grow into a woman of remarkable strength and integrity, qualities that make what follows all the more important. 28 years ago, your father made a devastating business decision. Blinded by ambition, he invested heavily in a pharmaceutical company called Novachem, despite warnings about their unethical testing practices. When the scandal broke, the company collapsed overnight. Thousands of people lost their life savings, including your maternal grandparents. To avoid financial ruin and public shame, your father made a Faustian bargain. He accepted funds from investors of questionable repute to save Mitchell Enterprises. The price was his soul, and, though they didn't realize it then, the future happiness of their family. For years, William and Eleanor lived in fear of exposure. They built walls of perfection around themselves. Blair, being the eldest and most like them in temperament, became their proxy for success, every achievement a distraction from the rot at the foundation of their empire. You, my dear Lauren, represented something entirely different. Your quiet integrity, your artistic spirit, your refusal to be molded into their image, these qualities terrified them because they were reminders of everything they had sacrificed for status and wealth. Here's what they never told you. They protected you the only way they knew how, by keeping you at arm's length from their poisoned legacy. Lauren paused, her hands shaking. She looked up at the photograph on the mantel, Uncle Eddie and her father as young men, arms slung around each other's shoulders, futures bright and unblemished. She took a steadying breath and continued reading. 10 years ago, when your father realized the depth of his ethical compromise, he began working secretly to make amends. With my help, he established the Phoenix Trust, a massive restitution fund for the victims of the Novachem scandal. He meticulously traced every investor who had lost money and channeled profits from Mitchell Enterprises to restore their losses with interest. This is the real reason for the elaborate division of assets in their will. Blair receives the visible trappings of the Mitchell legacy, but you, Lauren, have been entrusted with something far more important: the stewardship of the Phoenix Trust. In the accompanying documents, you'll find everything you need: account access, beneficiary information, and the list of 23 families still awaiting restitution. You'll also find the deed to this cabin, which is now yours, along with a fund established in your name. Modest by Mitchell standards, but sufficient to secure your future while you decide what comes next. Your parents weren't perfect, Lauren. They made terrible mistakes and lacked the courage to face them openly. But in their own broken way, they tried to protect you from their sins while ensuring their redemption would come through the daughter whose integrity they always secretly admired. Blair doesn't know about any of this, and telling her is your choice. She has inherited wealth, but not truth. You have inherited purpose and the chance to finish healing wounds that have festered for too long. I've always been proud to be your godfather. Now I leave you with both burden and blessing.
Use them wisely. With eternal faith in you, Uncle Eddie. Lauren set the letter down, tears streaming down her face. The cabin suddenly felt too small to contain the revelations, the reshaping of her entire understanding of her family. She spread the documents across the desk. The Phoenix Trust was substantial, nearly $40 million, with Lauren listed as the sole trustee. The deed to the cabin was accompanied by a bank statement showing a personal trust in her name containing $3 million. Among the papers was a small leather journal, her father's private record of his redemption efforts. The first entry was dated 12 years ago. Eddie says it's not too late to make this right. I don't deserve forgiveness, but perhaps I can earn peace. Eleanor thinks it's too risky, that it could destroy everything we've built. But what have we really built except a monument to our own cowardice? Lauren showed me her new illustrations today. Such honesty in every line. When did my daughter become braver than me? Lauren closed the journal, overwhelmed. Outside, the waters of the Puget Sound stretched toward the horizon, vast and unchanging despite the human dramas played out on its shores. She stepped onto the deck, the wind catching her hair as she tried to reconcile the parents she had known with these shadows and whispers of redemption. Her phone buzzed insistently. Blair had called 7 times since yesterday. There were also 3 messages from Michael Lawson, checking if she had made it to the cabin safely and offering assistance with any questions about the documents. Lauren took a deep breath of salt air. For the first time in her life, she felt the weight of her parents' regard, not the absence of it. They had trusted her with their redemption, believed in her integrity enough to place their most important legacy in her hands. As the sun began to set over the Sound, casting long, golden fingers across the water, Lauren made a decision. She would complete what her father had started, not for his sake or even for the Mitchell name, but because it was right, and because somewhere along the way, they had recognized in her the strength to do what they could not.
She pulled out her phone and texted Michael Lawson. "I'll need your help with the Phoenix Trust. Can we meet tomorrow?" His reply came almost immediately. "I've been instructed to assist you in any way possible. Your godfather was very clear about that." Lauren smiled, watching an eagle soar over the water. Tomorrow would bring complications, confrontations with Blair, and the beginning of a new chapter she had never anticipated. But tonight, in this cabin filled with memories and revelations, she finally understood. She had never been forgotten. She had been chosen. Chapter 3: The Inheritance of Truth. The Mitchell family home in Bellevue stood like a fortress of privilege against the morning light. Lauren parked her Honda beside Blair's Mercedes in the circular driveway, steeling herself for the conversation ahead. 3 days had passed since the will reading, and she had finally gathered the courage and the documentation needed for this moment. Michael Lawson sat in the passenger seat, his briefcase containing copies of everything from the lookout. "Are you sure you want to do this?" he asked quietly. "Legally, you're under no obligation to explain anything to her." Lauren watched a gardener trimming the perfect hedges that had always seemed to her like a barrier between the Mitchells and the real world. She deserves to know. Whatever happens next, we both need to understand what we've really inherited. Blair opened the door before they could ring the bell, her expression a storm of indignation and curiosity. "Finally, you've been ignoring my calls for days." Her gaze slid to Michael, narrowing with suspicion. "Why is he here?" "We need to talk, Blair," she said steadier, "about Mom and Dad. About everything." The 3 of them sat in the sunroom overlooking Lake Washington. Every surface gleamed with the evidence of Eleanor Mitchell's exacting standards: crystal vases, silver picture frames, and impeccable upholstery that had never known the chaos of children's sticky fingers or pets' muddy paws. Blair perched on the edge of a chair, defensive energy radiating from her rigid posture. "So what's this big mystery? Did Eddie leave you his bird-watching binoculars and fishing gear?"
Her laugh was brittle. I still can't believe he had any say in our parents' will. He didn't, Michael said, opening his briefcase. But he made sure the complete truth would come out after their passing. Lauren took a deep breath. Blair, what do you know about Novachem? Her sister's perfectly composed face flickered with something. Recognition, then alarm, quickly masked. That old scandal? Some pharmaceutical company Dad invested in ages ago. It went under. What does that have to do with anything? It has everything to do with who our parents were, with who we are. Lauren handed her sister a copy of her father's journal. Dad nearly lost everything because of Novachem. He made choices afterwards that haunted him for the rest of his life.
Blair flipped through the journal, her expression changing from dismissive to stunned as she absorbed their father's private confessions. When she looked up, her mascara had smudged beneath one eye, a small imperfection that humanized her in a way Lauren hadn't seen since they were girls. "I don't understand," Blair whispered. "If they were in so much trouble, how did they keep everything? How did we still have all this?" She gestured around the perfect room. Michael laid out the documents detailing the original financial arrangements, the questionable investors, the compromises, the decades of maintaining appearances while living with regret. "So that's why they were always—" Blair trailed off. "Always what?" Lauren prompted. "Afraid." Blair's voice was small. I could feel it sometimes. Even when everything seemed perfect, there was this undercurrent of, waiting for disaster. She looked at Lauren with new eyes. "Is that why they kept you at a distance? They were protecting you." Lauren nodded slowly. "According to Uncle Eddie, yes, in their own damaged way." "And me? What were they doing with me?" There was a raw vulnerability in Blair's question that stripped away years of competition. "They were making you in their image," Lauren said gently. "The perfect Mitchell heir. The success story they could present to the world as proof that they were still worthy." Blair's laugh was hollow. "Lucky me." For hours they went through the documents together. The Phoenix Trust, the restitution efforts, the careful division of legacy. Visible wealth to Blair, moral obligation to Lauren. As afternoon faded into evening, Blair poured them both glasses of their father's expensive scotch. "So you get a cabin and a trust fund, and I get the family mansion and business, but you also get to be the savior who finishes Dad's redemption project." She sipped her drink, her tone more thoughtful than bitter. "That actually sounds like them." Lauren studied her sister's face. "I don't see it as a competition anymore, Blair. We both got what they thought we could handle." "And what if I want to help?" Blair asked suddenly. "With the Phoenix Trust? Those people lost everything because of our family. I've spent my whole life building on a foundation I didn't know was rotten." Michael cleared his throat. "The trust documents give Lauren sole discretion over administrators and co-trustees. She could certainly appoint you to assist if she wished." The sisters' eyes met across the room, really saw each other, perhaps for the first time since childhood. "Why would you want to help?" Lauren asked carefully. Blair set down her glass. "Because I'm tired, Lauren. Tired of being perfect. Tired of being terrified that I'll never live up to what they expected." Her voice broke slightly. "And because when I read Dad's journal, I realized something I never understood before. He admired you, your choices, your independence. Meanwhile, I've been chasing their approval so long, I don't even know who I am without it."
Lauren felt something shift between them. Decades of resentment and competition giving way to the possibility of something new. The first meeting with the trust attorneys is next week. There's a lot to untangle. "I'm good at untangling," Blair said, a ghost of a smile playing at her lips. "Mitchell Enterprises has lawyers, resources. We could expedite the remaining restitution payments." As night fell over Lake Washington, the sisters moved to the kitchen, a room Eleanor Mitchell had rarely entered, preferring to leave cooking to the staff. They ordered pizza, something never allowed in the Mitchell household, and spread the Phoenix Trust documents across the granite island. "So what happens to the cabin?" Blair asked.
wiping tomato sauce from her lip in a gesture so uncharacteristically casual that Lauren had to smile. "It's mine now. Uncle Eddie left it to me along with his art collection." Nodded. "It suits you. It always did." She hesitated. "And this house? It feels like a museum now." "It's yours, according to the will." "Maybe I'll sell it," Blair said, surprising them both. "Start fresh somewhere without all these ghosts." As they worked into the night, Michael Lawson occasionally offering legal clarification, Lauren felt a strange sense of peace settling over her. The inheritance she had received wasn't just money or property or even purpose. It was truth. The complicated, messy truth about her parents, about family legacy, about the stories we tell ourselves to make sense of love and disappointment. 3 days later, the first 5 families received their restitution payments from the Phoenix Trust, accompanied by personal letters of apologies signed by both Mitchell sisters. It was an absolution. Nothing so simple could erase the damage done, but it was a beginning. Lauren moved permanently into the Lookout, converting the lower level into an illustration studio where she began work on a new children's book about 2 sisters who discover a hidden treasure map left by their parents. Blair didn't sell the Bellevue house immediately, but she did take an extended leave from Mitchell Enterprises, showing up at the Lookout one autumn morning with a suitcase and a tentative question about staying for a while. On clear evenings, the sisters would sit on the deck watching the sunset, passing between them their father's journal and their mother's recently discovered letters, piecing together the complicated people who had raised them, finding compassion for the fear that had driven them, and gradually building a bridge across the chasm that had separated them for so long. The last entry in William Mitchell's journal, written just weeks before the plane crash, now hung framed in Lauren's studio. Eleanor finally agreed to tell the girls everything after the Sanderson benefit next month. "It's time." I watched them together at the gallery showing for Lauren's illustrations. Blair looked at her sister with such pride when she thought no one was watching. "They are stronger than we ever were. Together, they might actually heal what we broke." Eddie was right all along. The truth doesn't destroy everything. Sometimes it's the only thing that can save what matters. They never got to have that conversation with their parents, but somehow, through Uncle Eddie's careful planning and their father's belated courage, the truth had found its way to them anyway. And that, Lauren realized, was perhaps the most valuable inheritance of all. If you've followed Lauren and Blair's journey to its conclusion, you've witnessed how truth can heal even the deepest family wounds. Their story reminds us that real inheritance isn't just about money or property. It's about the legacies we choose to carry forward and the ones we leave behind. If this story resonated with you, please subscribe to our channel now and share your thoughts in the comments below. Your own family stories and reflections are welcome in our community of storytellers. And stay tuned for our next series, where we'll explore another powerful tale of family secrets and unexpected redemption. Until then, remember that sometimes the truths we fear most are exactly the ones we need to embrace.